Ever wondered about the profound meaning behind Jesus' teaching? If your eye causes you to sin, pluck it out. It's an intense statement, isn't it? But rest assured, this teaching, like many others from Jesus, is rich with metaphorical depth and spiritual wisdom. So today, we'll take a deep dive into this teaching to understand its true essence. Firstly, it's crucial to remember that Jesus often used hyperbolic language to emphasize his teachings. His words were not a literal command to disfigure oneself, but rather a potent metaphor for the lengths we should go to in avoiding sin. The eye in this context symbolizes our perspective, our way of looking at the world, and our desires. If these lead us astray, Jesus advises us to radically change our viewpoint and eliminate those desires that cause us to sin. The teaching is not about physical punishment or self-inflicted pain, but about spiritual transformation. It's about acknowledging and dealing with our weaknesses, our sinful desires, and our harmful perspectives. It's about making the tough, even painful decisions that lead us closer to righteousness and farther from sin. But what does this mean in practical terms? It means that if we find ourselves repeatedly falling into sin due to a particular habit, relationship, or situation, we must be willing to pluck it out of our lives. It means making changes, sometimes radical ones, to live more in alignment with Christ's teachings. Remember, this teaching comes from a place of love and acceptance, not wrath and punishment. Jesus seeks not to scare us into obedience, but to guide us towards a more fulfilling, righteous life. He urges us to remove the stumbling blocks in our paths, not out of fear of divine retribution, but out of love for God and a desire to live in His light. So, to summarize, Jesus' teaching about plucking out the eye that causes us to sin is a metaphorical call to spiritual transformation. It's an invitation to change our perspectives, desires, and habits that lead us into sin. It's about making tough decisions, sometimes involving sacrifice, to live a life more in line with God's righteousness. And most importantly, this teaching is rooted in love and acceptance, not fear and punishment. It's about improving our spiritual well-being and deepening our relationship with God, motivated by love, not fear. Understanding this teaching can help us navigate our journey of faith with greater wisdom and courage. It reminds us that spiritual growth sometimes requires sacrifice and tough decisions, but these are steps towards a more fulfilling life in the light of God's love. So as we go forward, let us remember to view Jesus' teachings not as harsh commands, but as loving guidance towards a life of righteousness. Let us be willing to pluck out anything in our lives that hinders our spiritual growth, not out of fear, but out of love for God and a desire to live in His light.